number. I've written down my example so that I don't forget. So if I look down, guys, understand that I'm just taking reference from what I've written. Okay, starting with the first standard, professionalism. Under that we have 4 substandards, that is knowledge of the law, misconduct, misrepresentation, and independence and objectivity. First things first, do you need to know every standard number, that is 1A, 1B? No, nobody asks you standard numbers. I have never seen a question so far, so I don't think you need to know that. Just understand what each standard and substandard is trying to tell you. So first, standard, professionalism. Moving on to the first standard of it, that is knowledge of the law. Members must comply with all, this is what the text says, of course I've written it in my words. Members must comply with all applicable laws, governing bodies, rules and regulations, including, very very important line, including the CFA Institute Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct. Basic point of knowledge of the law means that you have to follow every law that applies to your company, your office, your state, your city, your region, your country, everything. And you also have to comply with the CFA Institute Code of Ethics. You have to comply with every law that can possibly govern you around. That is what it says. Bas, basic funda is do not break any law. Now let's explain this standard with the help of one example. Okay, your HR policy, take this as a very basic, like I'm giving human day-to-day examples. Okay, your HR policy says, assume that you're an office going person, so your HR policy says that the reporting time in your office is 9:30 a.m. That's what the policy says. But your department, your personal department where you're working, let's assume you work in the portfolio management department, that department starts their work at 10:30 a.m. The manager allows people to walk in by 10:30 a.m. because उससे पहले कोई काम होता ही नहीं है उस department का. Let's assume this. Okay. Now take for example, one day you reach the office at 10 a.m. Okay. Now again repeating, the HR policy says you have to report at 9:30 a.m. Your manager allows you to come at 10:30 a.m. because उससे पहले काम नहीं होता, and you walk in the office at 10 a.m. Will you be punished? Yes, because the standard 1A, that is knowledge of the law, says that you have to follow every possible law and जब भी ऐसा कोई conflict आता है where two laws are saying a different thing, in this case the HR policy is saying 9:30 a.m. your department is saying 10:30 a.m. you will always follow the stricter law. In this case the HR policy is the stricter law, the 9:30 a.m. So अगर आपने वो follow नहीं किया, you come under a violation. Only thing you need to remember in knowledge of the law is that you have to always follow the stricter law in case of conflict. That's literally the only thing you need to keep in mind. Now, if suppose, let's take this example further, if you know that your colleagues are doing it, okay, what will you do? What procedure will you follow? There is a step-by-step procedure given by the CFA Institute and you have to go by these steps only. In case you see someone else violating a law, in case you see your colleague, your friend, your associate, your client, anybody, your employer who's violating the law, so how will you deal with it in such a case, right? First option, this is the first thing you will do, is you will first go to your manager and HR. I'm taking the same example. You will go to your manager and HR and you will complain about them. You will say कि देखो भाई ऐसा ऐसा हो रहा है. Now, if the manager or HR does nothing about it, suppose they say कि यार छोड़ो हमें नहीं करना, हमें नहीं पढ़ना, what will you do? You will completely disassociate from that colleague, that friend, that activity. आप उसके साथ घूमना फिरना बंद कर दो, आप उसके साथ उन एक्टिविटीज में पार्ट लेना बंद करो. If that colleague is encouraging you, चलना, it's okay, we can come at 10, you disassociate and you say no, I will follow what is correct, I will not do these kind of activities with you, I will not work with you. That is third. Second, and only in a worst case scenario, अगर आप disassociate भी नहीं कर पा रहे हो, manager is not doing anything, nobody is doing anything to rectify the overall environment, only in that case do you have to resign. That's literally it. So moving on to standard 1B, that is independence and objectivity. Starting with the meaning, members and candidates must not offer or accept any benefit, compensation, etc. that could be expected to compromise their own or someone else's independence and objectivity. Basically, literally what this standard independence and objectivity is saying, that अपनी सोच सही रखना, किसी की बातों में मत आना. Don't get influenced by people. That's all this standard is trying to say. Example, very very filmy Bollywood level example, but let's assume that Karan Johar has a movie and he wants to promote it in such a way. He wants that all the influencers, because he knows that currently influencers are the talk of the town. He wants that every influencer gives his movie a positive review and every influencer says that it's a must watch. तो वो क्या करेगा ना, he will hold a very very grand screening wherein he sends a merc for each of these influencers to come, and he gives each of them like a very big expensive 10 lakh worth of hampers. He pampers all these influencers before the release of his film in such a way कि वो lure हो जाए and वो ना in depth में आके they just give him a positive review. That would be a violation if the influencers particularly give his film a positive review because they took all that. That is a violation. If they take all those gifts, that is a violation. You don't have to take only itna expensive gifts, itna expensive pampering if you know that that is being done to influence your decision. Okay, now keep in mind, take the same scenario. If he invites these same influencers for a regular normal screening wherein he keeps just a basic lunch, जो सब रखते ही हैं, basic lunch or dinner, that's okay. Basic rates, basic fees if you're giving to somebody, or you're giving a basic gift to your client, that's absolutely fair. That is allowed. What the standard highlights is, don't take something so unreasonable that it can affect your thoughts, it can affect your independence, it can affect your objectivity. It makes you think otherwise to give a decision on what you thought was right. Bas. Now how will you know what is reasonable and what is not? Keep an eye in the exam. They most cases they mention it, that this is an unreasonable gift that they offered. Then you know that it's a violation. If it is not mentioned, then unless it is something extremely extravagant, you can have a polarizing opinion. But in most cases in the exam, they always mention what is reasonable and what is unreasonable, because again that becomes subjective, right? For somebody 10 lakhs means nothing, for somebody 10 lakhs means a lot. So keep an eye for such words: reasonable, atrociously, exorbitant. Keep an eye, read the question very very well.